I stayed silent for a long time. Long enough that people began to think I didn't have a voice at all. They thought my quiet meant agreement, weakness, or worse, guilt. But silence has a story of its own, and mine was heavier than anyone ever imagined. My name is Emily Carter, and if you had asked anyone in my small town who I was, they would have said I was the woman who kept her head down and never caused trouble. I worked at the local elementary school as an assistant teacher. I baked pies for church gatherings, smiled politely at the grocery store, and lived a life that looked peaceful from the outside. But behind my front door, nothing was peaceful. I had been married to Daniel Carter for 11 years. When we first met, he was charming, thoughtful, and the kind of man who made you feel safe just by standing near you. He brought me coffee at work, remembered the little things I said, and told me I was the best thing that had ever happened to him. I believed him. I believed him for a long time. The first time Daniel raised his voice at me, it was over something small. I had forgotten to pick up his dry cleaning. He didn't yell loudly, but the tone in his voice cut deeper than any scream. I apologized, and he let it go, but something had shifted. I felt it. Then came the criticism. The way I folded the laundry wasn't right. The way I talked to his friends embarrassed him. The meals I cooked weren't as good as they used to be. It was never enough. And every time I tried to explain myself, he would sigh and say, "Emily, you're too sensitive." I'm just being honest. Honesty became his excuse for cruelty. After a few years, his temper grew sharper. He started drinking more, coming home late, slamming doors, muttering under his breath. I learned to stay quiet when he was in that mood. I thought if I didn't argue, things wouldn't escalate. I told myself it was just a rough phase, that all marriages had their struggles. But the struggles kept growing, and so did my fear. I didn't tell anyone what was happening. Not my friends, not my parents, not even my sister Rachel, who had always been the closest person in my life. I didn't want them to worry. I didn't want to feel ashamed. Most of all, I didn't want Daniel to find out I had talked. I knew what would happen if he did. So I stayed silent. One night, Daniel came home furious. He accused me of losing money, said I was careless and irresponsible. I tried to explain that the missing amount was a bank error, but he wouldn't listen. He threw the account papers across the room and told me I was a burden. I remember standing there, holding my breath, praying he would calm down. When he finally left the room, I sank onto the kitchen floor and cried as quietly as I could. That became my routine. Quiet tears. Quiet apologies. Quiet endurance. Then, the truth began to speak. It started with whispers. At school, I noticed some of the other teachers looking at me strangely. At first, I thought it was my imagination, but then I overheard my name in the hallway. "She doesn't look like the type," one of them said softly. But you never know what goes on behind closed doors. My heart stopped. I wondered what they meant, but I was too afraid to ask. A few days later, Rachel called me. Her voice was tense. "Emily, I need to ask you something," she said. "What is it?" I replied, already feeling the dread building in my chest. "Daniel came by our house last night. He said you've been acting unstable. He told Mom and Dad you've been forgetting things, misplacing money, and even shouting at him. He said he's worried about you." I felt the world tilt. My hands began to shake. "He said that?" I whispered. "Yes. And Mom is scared." She thinks you might be having some kind of breakdown. Is everything okay? I didn't know what to say. For years, I had protected Daniel by keeping quiet. I had taken all the blame, thinking it would keep the peace. And now he was turning my silence against me, painting me as the problem. I wanted to tell Rachel the truth. I wanted to scream it. But the old fear held me back. I'm fine, I said softly. He's just stressed. It's nothing. She hesitated. Emily, if something's wrong, you can tell me. I know, I replied. But really, I'm okay. I hung up and stared at the wall for a long time. My silence had allowed him to control the narrative. And now, he was using it to destroy my reputation. Still, I said nothing. Weeks passed, and the rumors grew louder. Daniel told people I was careless, forgetful, emotional. He said he was trying to help me, that he was a patient husband dealing with a difficult wife. Everyone believed him. Why wouldn't they? I had never spoken up. One evening, he came home with that familiar tightness in his face. He didn't yell this time. He just sat at the table and said, "Emily, you need to be more careful about how you act. People are starting to notice." Notice what? I asked. Your behavior, he replied. You've been off lately. It's embarrassing. I realized then that he had created a trap. If I defended myself, it would look like I was proving his point. If I stayed silent, he would keep controlling the story. So I stayed silent. Until the truth spoke for me. It happened on a rainy Thursday night. Daniel had invited some friends over for dinner. I prepared the meal like always, making sure everything was perfect. I smiled and served them, acting like the polite wife everyone expected. But halfway through the evening, Daniel made a joke at my expense. Emily has this habit of losing things, he said with a laugh. You'd be amazed how many times she's misplaced money or important papers. I don't know what's going on with her. His friends chuckled politely. I felt my cheeks burn. Then one of them, Mark, looked at me and said, "Is that true?" I opened my mouth, but no words came out. I felt trapped, small, and exposed. Daniel's eyes were on me, daring me to speak, daring me to contradict him. So I stayed silent. That's when my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. It was a message from Rachel. It said, "Emily, Mom found the recordings Daniel sent. Please check your email. You deserve to know." My heart pounded as I opened the email. There, attached, were audio files. I pressed play. Daniel's voice filled the room. It was him shouting, calling me names, accusing me, telling me I was worthless. Telling me no one would believe me if I ever tried to speak. Telling me I had no one. He had been secretly recording our arguments and sending the parts where I sounded upset, but Rachel had found the full files. The unedited truth. The room went silent. Daniel's face drained of color. "Turn that off," he snapped. But I didn't. For the first time, I didn't stay quiet. I let the truth speak. His friends stared at him in shock. The mask he had worn for years fell away in seconds. There was no explaining it, no twisting it. The evidence was clear. He stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind him. I stood there, shaking, but I felt something new rising inside me. Relief. For years, I thought silence was my shield. But it had only been his weapon. The truth had been there all along, waiting for the right moment to be heard. And when it finally spoke, it set me free. That night, I packed a small bag and left the house. Rachel came to pick me up. As I sat in her car, I realized my voice had been inside me all this time. I had just been too afraid to use it. But I wasn't afraid anymore. Because sometimes, you don't need to shout to be heard. Sometimes, the truth does it for you.